Although we've allowed the wizard to effectively build our reports, there's nothing to stop us going in and editing the layout of those reports subsequently. For example, the one that we did called RPT Big Spenders 2013, if we double click that from the navigation list here, it will open and run the report, therefore pulling out the latest data. We saw when we did this before that it didn't quite all fit on the page. So if we change to print preview, you can see that the right-hand side does not fit. And even if we were to change to landscape, which is a quick fix, okay, sometimes, we see that the data actually does fit on the page, but then there's some width issues, but we can resolve those. Now, when you open a report initially, it will open in layout mode. So let's just close this. So I double click here, it opens in report layout. Now in report layout, you can't tell how it's going to look when it's going to be printed, which is why I tend to always move back into print preview. Because that way we know where the pages are, we know how much data we're going to get on each page, and we can look at a variety of options for making it fit. The other options, if you close print preview, are to go to view, and we have report view, which is this view, print preview, which I quite like, because it allows us to see how the report's going to look when we either print it or change it into a PDF. And then we have two other views that allow us to control the actual layout. There is layout view, which shows us the fields with the data, but they're adjustable. So if I close the field list, you'll see that the first name, personally I think that's using way too much width. We can narrow that up by grabbing the right hand side there, and you can see that that narrows up and actually pulls everything else with it, which is quite useful. So again there, and it pulls everything else across with it. Now we can do that in layout view, or we can do it in design view. Now the difference between layout and design view is that in design view we don't see any data, we see the design of the report. Now all your reports are broken down into sections. We have a report header section, that's this section here, that appears on your report once right at the beginning. And there we can see the label, which we can adjust. It doesn't have to have the name of the query in there, and it can have spaces. So it becomes a proper heading then, instead of just a replica of the file name. We have two little calculating fields here, one working out the date and one working out the time, and we have a little picture. We have a page header. In the page header, which appears at the top of every page, hence the name of it, we have labels for our data. And you can see first name, last name, country region name, total purchase YTD, and date first purchased. And because we haven't added any captions to our actual tables, these labels are the same as the field name, which is not how a human would read. We'd want a space there, space there, space there and there, space there, and between there and there, just to make it easier to read. Then we see the details section. Now the details section repeats for every single record in our report. So we only have one detail section in design, but in layout and in preview, we see as many detail sections as there are records. And in our detail section, we have first name, last name, country region name, total purchase YTD, and date first purchase. These are the fields that are being used on the report. Then in the page footer, we have a special little field here that the wizard has created for us. That's the page X of Y. And then in the report footer, which appears once and only once at the end of all the data, regardless of where that data finishes, partway down the page, near the top of the page, at the bottom of the page, you will then get the report footer immediately afterwards. And in here we have another calculating field that is working out the sum, so the total purchase YTD. So when you go back to Home, View, and Print Preview, you can see stuff at the page footer is here, and the report footer is here right at the end. Now when it comes to amending the design of this particular report so that we can get it to fit on the page much better, you saw that in layout mode, so close Print Preview, Report View, Layout View, I'm able to adjust the column widths. So that when we go to Print Preview, you can see I'm actually using up less width of the page, and we now actually only need 3 pages. I could go a lot narrower and actually turn this back to portrait. So let's turn it back to portrait. And we see we aren't quite narrow enough. It just goes over ever so slightly. So let's close the print preview. You can't do anything about the design and the structure in print preview. Back in report layout view, I'm just going to narrow up the last name and the country region name, and then print preview. And we see we actually managed to fit on 4 pages, but really the data's only on 2. Now to stop this from happening, we can go close print preview, into design view. You can see the right hand side of the report. This is where the report finishes, but my data finishes here. So all of this bit here, 3.5 inches, is why we're getting that blank space. So let's firstly move this little field over. It's in line with our data. That's the page X of Y. And then we can actually pull in the right hand side there, right up to it. So I've actually made the report narrower. Then when we go to print preview, you'll see we now are on 2 pages. That bit here has gone because I've narrowed the width of the report. And one other amendment I would want to make here is we can't quite see the summary there, plus it's not formatted correctly. So we go back into design. This field here just needs to be that little bit higher. Then I need to format it as currency. So with it selected, on the Report Design Tools Design sub-ribbon, I need the property sheet. Because I have this field selected, that's the one we're looking at, Access Totals, Total Purchase YTD. And on the Format tab, Format, I can choose Currency. That way when I go back to Print Preview and look at that last page, it's now high enough because I've increased its height and it's formatted as money. So even without some great in-depth knowledge, you can go into the design of a report and just tweak things around a bit. The width of items, the height of items, format a few items, the width of the page. All little helpful things that will help you improve what a wizard can do, because sometimes it will just throw things on the report, and we saw here that it wasn't quite using the width correctly. So we were able to change the page layout, narrow up some of the column widths, increase the height of one field, and change the formatting.